my goal right now is to make sure that people care about the world. Because if you care about something, if you're emotionally attached to something, then I don't need to teach you about sustainability and the importance. Then you would just do it. If you help other people, it's something where you don't need any sort of, the reward in itself is helping other people. So, and I think it's the core thing. I have a kid who's like 2.5 years old, and now she's beginning to become more independent. But that whole thing about helping her, that I'm there. But it's the same thing as a teacher. It's the same thing as being a consultant. Actually, in some cases, this thing about helping other people, I think that's a fundamental thing where we thrive. And just so that's one thing. Okay, helping other people and doing something. Then there's this thing about creating. I think that's another thing that we really love to do. I think we love to build. I think we love to create. I think we love to do something. Whether it's like building a small Lego castle or building some sand castles at the beach, or this thing about creating something and actually having something where it doesn't need to be something that we need to make money out of. That's usually what we talk about when it comes to entrepreneurship. But this whole thing about creating something that you love, that's also why I love working with art. Because art is not, you don't become an artist because you want to make money out of it. You do it because you can't help not to. That's why artists are usually some of my favorite people to hang around, because they are very passionate. And for me, that is like, I want to be close to passion. I mean, if I could be around anybody who's working with anything, as long as they're passionate about what it is that they're doing. I'm like, because I tap into that energy. So that's why I think it's like really interesting to working with that. So this thing about helping other people and this thing about creating is some of the core elements. And that, I mean, comes to AI, when it comes to other things.
But we talked a lot about this before, about starting where you are, because a lot of what you're saying, building things and helping other people, sometimes it's hard to imagine your own little bubble, how much impact can that actually be, and how much impact and how much people you can actually help with the little bubble thing that you have. What would you say to that?
You shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't be built in that it's. I mean, it's nice to see when you do something that it helps other people, but I think it also helps yourself. I mean, it needs to come from inwards and then out.
Right.
And if you do that, then you don't mind if people don't. You don't mind people not showing up because you still love it. But it's fun to do it with somebody else that you. I mean, one of my best. One of my best advice is you don't do something with somebody that you really love working together with. I have a business partner called Mads, and I mean, I don't function as well without him as I do when I'm around him. And we always give ourselves like 4 to 5 weeks of vacation time when it comes to summer. And those 4 to 5 weeks, I'm like, I miss my business partner. I just I miss jamming. We work music analogies all the time. I love this thing about jamming. And you only need like one more, but you become pretty fragile if you only work with it by yourself. And then you don't get anybody to share the success that you get, which is like, I think, I mean, the being an entrepreneurship and doing something is not like, it's also about having some goddamn fun about what it is that we're doing, and doing something that is like where we become proud and actually celebrate. Hey, I'm pretty good at this, and we did something that benefited. So I think it's motivating to see that it helps other people as well. But I think that's only, as we talk about equations, that's one part of the equation. It's not the whole. If you only do it if to see what the reactions are from other people, then I think go a bit back and then, I mean, work with your means or work with your inner passion. Because if you're passionate about what it is that you're doing, then you do it no matter what people say. And that's I kind of dig that. And then my advice would also be, and then do that really, really well. Do something that has quality. Because if we have quality, people would notice over time. You can be bad at marketing or selling. You can be pretty introvert. You can be somebody who says, I hate this thing about selling my product. I'm like, yeah, but just people are going to take notice. And some of the best people I know, the most successful, they are actually kind of introvert. The people I used to study with back in Herning for my original degree, And I was like always outspoken and very extrovert, loved doing social things. So I created a lot of social value. But people who are like successful when it comes to more classical entrepreneur, I would actually say they're pretty introvert. And I think they're pretty good at knowing what it is that drives them. And also have a way of knowing when to tap into themselves and rejuvenate.
What do you think, when is the point in your life that you kind of like, because you say that you continue and continue and continue until people take notice. But what is a healthy boundary of like, okay, this is really not succeeding, now I need to stop with
3 years. 3 years. Yeah, my experience is if it doesn't succeed within 3 years and you want it to succeed, if that is your goal in some way, I mean, you have to give it like 3 years where you don't have them. And we usually say things go in cycles, and so 3 repetitions usually, and that's why 3 years is usually a good thing. But it could be, I can see, for instance, I used to host a block party. The first year,
what is that?
A block party is like where you close down the street and everybody comes out. So like 3,000 people.
Okay.
So this is just on a street where you just do it with all the locals, all the businesses, and do that. The first year I did it, it was a massive success. Then we learned a lot from that. And then the next year, we began, okay, this is what we need to do for it to become better. And then the third year, then it was like, okay, this is probably the best year that we have. We're still passionate about it. So after 3 repetitions, after 3 years, after something that you do 3 times, then you know. Because the first 2 is about experimenting and getting to know. You know what it is that you're doing, but you also know the people that you're doing it with. So, the 3 years is just from my own point of view. If I don't make money out of it after 3 years and it's something that I want to do, then it's perhaps not the right time or the right business model. So that's why sometimes it's hard to have students when you only have them for like 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Because I can see a lot of them. I know that it's 1.5 years after that they're done teaching and got their degree that's actually when they're beginning to become more successful in that terms. So the key is actually to take notice on the small milestones that we see and appreciating those milestones and actually say, okay, that was actually kind of cool, to keep the energy up, because 3 years is a long time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and so that's why it's good to have partnership. But also, I have a company called Vibe and Tone.
What do you do there?
We are a consultant company at the moment, but we used to run a music venue. I used to have a coffee shop, and then I used to have a shop that worked with the craft beers and music vinyls. And my business partner, he had a sort of like an art gallery. So we had like different types of shops. And then we began working together, and we saw, because I have a full-time job on the side, I work as a teacher, and we developed a model called the 2/3 model.
Okay.
Where it's like 2/3 of the time that you're working, that is all the things that's what that is the work that's paying your bills. Those are the hours where it keeps, like, if you're, so for instance, if you're married or have a girlfriend or whatever, that is the time where she can see, okay, you're paying your bills, and she's not worried about the next rate coming up, like the next first of the month. How are we going to pay the bills? So those 2/3 in the beginning is what makes you free, but you need to have like 1/3 that is like fully passionate, where it's about your core values. It needs to be connected to those values. And it needs to be something, so if other people are saying, okay, so you're creating this thing, how are you going to make money out of it? Where you can say, I don't know yet, but ask me again in a couple of years and I will tell you. And it's a really, I hate that question, how are you going to make money out of it? It's like seeing the world only in terms of economic value, and not letting something gestate and becoming something beautiful. So that's another part of the equation, is to do so. You can work in your local supermarket, sitting at the cashier, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But it pays your rent, and then all of a sudden it gives that purpose. If you only do that, then it's something where you don't like it. But then if it's something that becomes, but this allows me to do like the 1/3 that I do, then all of a sudden it gives it a purpose. And for me, that's like an intellectual challenge to have like this sort of mindset where you can switch and saying, okay, this is why I'm doing this job. It allows me to be free within this zone, creating something that's beautiful, that's free of all these stupid questions that you get from society, and just doing something that's like really nice. And as a teacher, as a fellow entrepreneur, whatever, I'm always much more interested in hearing why are people passionate about this and what is it that they create, and then giving that full support, because knowing and because the world it goes so fast. So I don't know where this is gonna go. I don't have the slightest idea because it changes so fast. And the things I said about the 3 times, it's also like your third company that's going to be successful. Usually, you need to have like 2 companies that are like
Actually,
yeah. But that's just mine. But this, so there is the beautiful thing about 3, but it's also an easier concept to sell. When you tell, you could have a success with your first startup, whatever. But this whole thing about saying, okay, this is not me making money, this is about me learning and knowing and doing all the wrong things. And we celebrate our mistakes too little I think in this country.
Yeah.
I think in general, I never heard this before. Celebrating your mistakes.
But no, like it's like you have, let's say you have home, you have wife, you have parents-in-law, and they're all questioning your decisions. You're like, hey, what are you doing with your life? You're like, hey, I'm starting a company. You're like, so how will you pay the bills? That's always a question, right?
Yeah. And then my advice to somebody in that position would say, yeah, then don't spar and don't jam with those people. Find somebody else who's like, who has been through it, or who want to do the journey with you together. And knowing that if you apply knowledge and learn from it, then it's not a mistake. Then it's just a part of a learning experience. And I think it's much more fun also actually to tell. I can see when I teach, when I do workshops, when I do whatever, it's all the mistakes. That's where that. But it's also where we become stronger. It's also, I say to the students, I think you're anti-fragile in so many ways. We have to find a balance where there's some sort of like obstacles, some sort of hurdles. But if they become too massive, then you just zone out. Then you don't say it's too much. If it's too easy,
you're not challenged.
No. There needs to be this challenge. And it needs to be catered to where you are in life. And sometimes you're in a pretty good stage in your life where everything is just like working out. I'm in that moment right now. It just seems like everything.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, so everything becomes like kind of easy, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Like I got like a clear vision of where it is that I'm going, where my company is going, where my professional life, where my family life is going, and everything is like sort of like. But it took a long time. I said yes to a lot of things where it's like, and I'm really proud of all the things that I've done. And all the mistakes I've made, and I love telling about the mistakes because I think those are actually the one that proves to other people that you've done something.
I've heard a lot of like entrepreneur guys talking about like how actually quitting everything and focus 100% on one thing gives you like a certain drive, a certain like commitment to do something that other people they are balancing a lot of other things in life might not have. What do you say to that? Because what you're saying now sounds so much more sober advice.
I think there's an element that you also burn out. And I think this, for instance, a classical entrepreneur story that we know in Denmark is Jesper Buch, who said, I'm going to take 5 years and then I have created my company. Yeah, he's a special kind of guy. And I'm okay. I love that he's there, but he doesn't represent the whole spectrum of people. And I'm much more interested in the people who have some talent. And I usually say I work with potentials, not problems. So I'm much more interested in saying I can see some potential. And usually I can see it more than people themselves know that what potential that they have. And that's also helping other people see their potential is like really an amazing thing. Like you just do something. And my thought about that is it's like it's like people who do sports and who are like really want to be professional. And in the beginning, they can pretty fast. Have to work like 5 times a week if they want to become professional within some sort of field. It could be like football, swimming, whatever. There's a chance that people will burn out from that experience. That whole thing, that it becomes your entire life. I'm like, but life is so much more than only that part. You also need to relax. You need to reflect. You need to have friends. You need to have family. You need to have time to yourself. I mean, that whole package. And I'm like, I don't understand what the rush is. I'm like, we're going to work until we're like 80 or 90 or I don't know how old we're going to get. And so the whole element that we're in such a hurry, and I'm like, I'm afraid that people don't take notice on all the other things in life. And for instance, right now I have a kid who's like 2.5 years old, and I'm like, she's number one in my world, no question. I'm like, yeah, and I'm okay with being a bit more like slow tempered and just like it don't need to be this fast paced right now because I have a daughter who's like fast paced enough. I get like all my wonderful thing in life from her at the moment, and also my girlfriend. But it's that whole element, like you have to focus on 100%. Is like only good for like a small portion of the people in our society. And I think other people, I can see when I talk about the 2/3 model, where you have something where it pays your bills, but then you have 1/3 that is like, okay, in practical, when I talk to entrepreneurs who are like starting up, they become like, oh, thank you for telling me this, that I don't have to do it. So there's a lot of pressure on being an entrepreneur.
There is.
That I don't think is that fruitful, because people are like, okay, how are we going to live off this? How much do you make? How much money do you make? I'm like, take the time out. I mean, let me do it, and then let me do it, because I think that's a more healthy way to grow your company. And then, as I said, if you know that it takes time, but it goes like this, then all of a sudden.
Right.
So the first 2-3 years in the beginning, when Vibe and Tone was created, it's like 8-9 years old. So we're in our 4th circle of iteration. So now we're really looking into saying, okay, where should we go? And that whole thing, like in the beginning, we were just happy to do something where it was fun just creating. Then all of a sudden we were like, okay, we can make, I mean, the value that we create, somebody's going to, don't mind that we take some money from this. And now we're just in the process of still saying, okay, we allow ourselves to, we still have the 2/3 model built into our whole thing. So we can do something where we don't know how are we going to make money out of this, but it's something that is just that we feel passionate about. But the 2/3 that we have are like, they're pretty good. I mean, usually when we send out invoices to our customers, they're like, yeah, fine, do. Yeah. I mean, they don't, because the value that we create is so big. So to get back to your question, I would say you need to find your own pace, but that again comes from inside out. You need to find a pace that is built upon your values and your passion and how you want to do it, and also what point of life are you in right now? And it goes up and down. Right now, I'm like, I'm just glad that everything is like really nice, and I don't mind. It doesn't need to be this fast paced. Then perhaps in a couple of years, when my kid is like, she don't want to see me anymore because you want to hang out with her friends, then that gives me more time to do other things. And then I just know I don't watch a lot of television. I mean, it's just, I just remove things that are like, for me, insignificant. For other people, I mean, sitting down on the couch, seeing a show on Netflix, it might be the best time. I don't do that. I listen to music. I need to be around music. I've just put up record players in like 3 of our rooms back in the house, so I just have record players all around. I could just always listen to a record, and I just know when I have it at that point. That's also the whole thing about being at a point of life where everything is like really nice. I know if I listen to records and I got time to dig records, because I also work as a DJ, and I used to do much more, but I just miss it. It's something that I just love doing. Something where I don't need actually the money to do it, but I get it.
Fun.
Yeah, it's just fun. I'm like, well, I could do this for free, but I don't mind getting paid to do it. But I mean, if it's like a really cool event, but then I want it to be something that's really fun. So having those elements, and I think that's because everything is aligned along with my core values about what it is that I want to do. And there are some elements about enjoying music, about helping other people, about doing something that benefits other people. And I'm also beginning to shift to have a focus on biodiversity, which I find really fascinating.
Biodiversity. Okay.
Restoring our world. And doing that, not having people in the center of an ecosystem, but part of an ecosystem, and that requires an element of being humble. And that,
how does this come into music? How do you?
Because music is music is something that's good for sharing. You can have a shared experience. So when we do something, if you hire Vibe and Tone, my company, there's bound to be music at one point. What it is that we do. So, for instance, if we do a workshop in collaboration with somebody, we always have music before, because then it eases up people, makes them relax. And then once you're done, you're like, yeah, then there's going to be some music. And then I think also because music is a really, really nice way to get emotionally attached to something, and it's something that we can share. And I love creating common spaces between people. I usually say we should have elections right after Roskilde Festival, because that is when everybody is like happy and interact with each other. And I don't know, from my sense, I have Greenlandic heritage, and Denmark can be like a pretty, isolated place. A lot of people are lonely in a big city as Copenhagen. I'm like, that's kind of strange. There's like 1 million people around, and people are just like isolated. Music has a tendency to open that.
Yeah.
And it speaks to something, and something that we can share. And then it's just something that, again, I think it's something, as soon as you hear a rhythm,
yeah, it makes you moving.
It just does something. We also begin to resonate with each other. So this whole thing about knowing how to use music, and it could be art, it could be whatever. For me, it's just music. And since I'm not that good at playing an instrument, I've just taught myself to play other people's instruments through vinyls. But then the whole vinyl thing is also something that's tangible, something to share, and something to, it makes it becomes more significant, because, having Spotify, having Tidal, whatever program you use, you have all the records to your disposal. But that's, it's much more interesting to have I only have these records, and then I play around with those. So, if I could, I would just, when I had my music venue, I said, man, I got to do a lot of stuff just to get a place where I can play hip-hop records. I got to do all these things just to get a place where I can play my hip-hop records. That was one of the goals, because there's not a good place in Copenhagen as such to listen to hip-hop. And so I said, then I must create that scene. And then I never got a chance to almost DJ at my own place. Everybody else did, and everybody else made money out of that business venture. But it was still nice to set up a platform where, and I did a small club called Fresh Needles and Monitor, because it's always when you're DJ and you go to a gig and play, the needles on the record player are always like really, really bad.
Okay.
And there's no monitor, so you can listen. It's only the audience who can have a good sound. So I'm saying, I'm going to build a stage that is centered around the DJ, because I know if you do that,
if DJ enjoys himself,
yes, and you can, that rubs off to the audience as well. And if you do something where it's like real professional to the DJs, and you get a good hire, you get some good, all the things that are really, because everybody's a DJ in Copenhagen. There are so many DJs. So the market is just like really crazy. And so we decided a different approach, where it was like, okay, let's pay our DJs and let's make sure that they got some really amazing equipment. And then also when they work with us, they got a new needle for their home as part of the whole thing. And they were like, they never experienced that. And it's a small thing to remember. So people remember us. And then we wrote a small, like, thank you for playing with us on the thing. And that thing about having a token, something that's tangible, tactile, that you can give as as some sort of like symbol to, and then they remember that. And knowing if you hire other people, then it's the best way to get hired yourself. Because I mean, the whole cultural circle in Denmark is not that big, so it goes. What goes around comes around.
Yeah, that's what I'm also discovering just on LinkedIn. It's pretty like people know each other. There's quite a group here in Copenhagen, especially, I would say, which is quite nice and surprising.
Yeah, and then it's a matter of getting into that. And sometimes it's like knowing. I had a friend of mine who's like she runs the whole camping side of Roskilde Festival, and she says, yeah, that area down there, that's where all the IT folks, they volunteer to be part of Roskilde Festival. And one of them, they like make like perhaps like 80,000 a month. They could pay for it, but they do it for something else. And they say, this is the biggest job market within the IT industry. This is where they just swap around knowing what's going on, and they just love doing that. So they're with like minds and knowing where are those things. And for me, Vibe and Tone is also creating those settings where people can meet and interact with other people. And if I can help other people succeed, I'm like, yeah, I was part of that. I don't need to be in the center of everything. So it's just setting the stage for other people to actually to be around. And that's why we used to say when we work within a network or an ecosystem, there are like three core things that we do. There's got to be a host, somebody organizing a network, but you can also co-host, so you can actually it could be shared. And it's like a potluck where everybody brings something to the table. So you need to bring more to the table than what you want to gain from the whole network. And then there's got to be diversity. Because, for instance, if you guys just hooked up with other people who made podcasts, then you would just share stories about how is the business, and that's okay for a while. But then there needs there needs to be diversity, because that brings a creative tension. So that's why it's like really important not to get into a silo or your own bubble within a branch, and then saying I'm not going to talk to other people. Actually, I think that's the most important thing, is actually to set up a culture where you talk to other people. And coming back to music, I mean, we can disagree on political issues, on whatever. But if we find something, we can come together on music saying, yeah, I also love some metal or some hip hop or some indie or yeah.
This is actually one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because we have noticed that within the videography market, the videographers are only talking to each other, and they are hiring themselves, and like they are never really going outside of their circles, and it's often tough for them to get some clients and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's why we were like, okay, we really need a different approach to our business. And this is why also the podcast started, because we wanted to talk to people that are not videographers.
Yeah.
So just like people from business, different paths in life and stuff like that. So
I said to Kim, what are you going to do with all the knowledge that you can get out of this podcast? I mean, just like there's a lot of cool things going on, you can actually transcribe it or do some learning material from it. So it's a good way to collect data and just like getting some insights to how are people doing, and that material could actually also be kind of useful. But that's another. I'm not here to. I just love your podcast. So doing that thing. But Vibe and Tone is really good at not seeking money within the cultural industry, but actually tapping into money from education, from city development, from other topics where there's a lot more money.
Okay, please share the knowledge. How does that world works?
So let's say, like, one of the things we love doing, creating events. And if I were to do an event, if within the culture, then it's a matter of seeking. In the music industry, there's tariffs where it's like a stand-up. It's an agreement that we have. Like, it's around 2,500 Danish kroner to do a gig, like 40, 45 minutes, something in that range, depending on the artist. So that's the minimum. And that's, for many people, that's like something that they are really nice to get a tariff. And for us, that's like the minimum. If you're working with us, we're going to make sure that you get a tariff as an artist. But finding the resources to hire them, if you think big, saying, okay, let's do a city development project where we, instead of saying, we want to have music for 4 musicians, that's like 10,000 kroner. okay, let's wonder how we can get that. If we think big, saying, okay, this is a 3-year project where we want to do something that's like where we seek the funding for like 500,000, and then we just put those artists within, saying they're really good at bringing people together, and they, instead of saying instead of talking about struggling artists, that whole industry, how that is, I would imagine it's the same thing within. It could be within, like it could be struggling, because why should we do that? It's so easy for us to do that, and it's like, yeah, but there are some. We're professional when it comes to our line of work. But if you think big, and then it all becomes part of it, and then you're really good at seeing the bigger picture, then all of a sudden it becomes no big deal getting those. You just say to your customers, your clients, okay, we also need to have some music, because that's just part of the whole thing. But when it comes to like the building industry, educations, city renewal, then they are not afraid of seeing a budget that's like a couple of millions. So, and then if it's only a small percentage of that goes into that, but then, so usually we always have money to do something that's really nice. So thinking about the big picture, for instance, right now we're doing a project, it's at Stones, the area that I live in, which is like an hour down south. It's way out. So, I mean, it's like, and there are, I mean, Stones has a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of hurdles and obstacles when it comes to like, it's pretty spread out, and some smaller cities, and there are no schools as such. There's only elementary schools. So, but instead of saying, okay, we want to do a creative, collaboration in that area, and then we can just see people are like, oh yeah, it's hard getting a job in this area. I'm like, yeah, I heard this story before. Everybody has that approach, and I'm like, because it drains me. I don't want to hear more about struggling artists. So I said to my business partner, I said, if we're gonna do this, let's flip it around, and then let's say, how could a creative collaboration at Stones solve the other problems that we have at Stones? So realizing the big picture, talking to the municipality of Stones, talking to other people, okay, how can this actually help reaching the potentials that we have in this area? And then getting an understanding of, okay, this is something that actually, so it could be loneliness, it could be when like shops closing down because there's not life in downtown of the cities that we're working with. It could be other things about poor education. It could be drug use. It could be a lot of different things that we actually tap into. Saying, okay, we know that this thing about working with culture actually can solve some of the other issues that we have by using that. That's a different game. That's a different approach to going into this. And then all of a sudden, this thing about that we also need to have some money for the artists, it becomes like a small percentage of the big picture. Mm-hmm. And it becomes so much more sustainable, because this sort of thing about living like day to day is like, it's a struggle. And when I do projects, I want to have like the long term. Mm-hmm. But knowing also how to speak, I used to work a lot with city renewal, and I work within education, so I know how to talk these languages. Mm-hmm. I know how to do that. Mm-hmm. So and that's why it's good thing to have these things who are like in. There's a term within project management or organization development that's called weaving, not Donald Trump weaving as such, but this thing about weaving, where you wove everything together, and everything's become more connected. And I think the thread that we use for that is culture, but that it brings us together, and so we can do a lot of things about when it comes to like childcare and people, I mean, who are struggling, who have like all these diagnosed with ADHD and on and on. We don't focus on that when we work. And we are much more interested in the benefits that it actually creates, the value that it creates, and knowing that value and putting that into context, and then being really good at knowing when to talk to the mayor and when to talk to other people, knowing how to put that into some sort of like a system where you have a vision of where things going. So and then we're really good at taking funding from other branches into the culture branch or the culture sector. And that's, I mean, then because then we don't need to then we don't need to fight with all the other artists and all the other like really wonderful projects going on, like different venues. Because we get our funding elsewhere from, and those funding is so much bigger than within the culture. So that's but it takes a lot of time to do that, but it's like really fun to do.
Okay.
And I love doing it.
How was it hard to start this? How long time has it taken to be here?
I mean, 42 years.
42 years. Okay.
I'm 42. So I mean, I think it began in high school, actually. Not with a company, but then creating something along with your friends. I have some wonderful friends who are like completely yes men. They always say yes to things. And so, and this is just actually something realizing now, some sort, like how much that actually meant. Being around people who are like, when we have an idea, should we do this? They're like, yes, let's go for it. Because not
That's
because
huge.
yeah. So I think the whole culture about my own mindset began that, but it began way earlier than that. It began with my mom and dad, making sure that like I was a good kid, making sure that I was pleasant to be around and that I helped other people. I think those core values about helping other people, about making sure that you are somebody for somebody else, and that you can't just have it your way. It needs to be something that is within the framework of other people, and you can do some wonderful things. But if you hurt other people in that while you're doing it, then it's I think my mom especially would be kind of mad at me. She passed away like 7 years ago. And so, but she's still there all the time, advising me on a mental level. So yeah, she would love that. So it began. It's a lot of like small components, and combined into this person that is Rasmus Petrussen, but I think when it comes to Vibrant Children, we began 9 years ago. The company.
Was it hard to start?
No, that was easy.
Okay,
because
how come?
Because I did it with Mads, who's the business partner I have right now, and then a fellow colleague of mine who worked at a bar also worked at. And we all had an idea of wanting to create a music venue. So that was the whole vision. And then we just began on that. So that was kind of easy.
Okay.
Because all the three of us was used to like doing something, and didn't mind that it was kind of hard, because people who work those two are musicians. It's like seeing people who is like really good at skating, or like really good at standing on rollerblades. Or you know that in order for them to be good, they have to take a lot of beating. So those, I mean, it's Chris Rock said it like really good at a show. I saw the comedian in Cars Getting Coffee. He said those people who are like really good at skating, they're going to turn out all right, because they don't mind taking a ton of beating in order for them to succeed. Musicians are better the same way. Successful musicians, all the gigs that they have to do where there are no audience, or people just like, play something that we like. It's just like, so you know when you're around those people that they are anti-fragile. They are resistant. They have something to back it up. And then we were just really good at taking the knowledge that we had from earlier project and then putting into that. But then, I mean, we still made a ton of mistakes. And it's actually first now that we are beginning to say, okay, now we can begin to like pay ourselves. I say that
After 9 years.
Yeah.
Now that's awesome. So we are on a good journey.
Yeah. So, but we could actually perhaps like done something, but we decided to be as of a movement called Democracy Garage in Northwest. And that, I wouldn't say it took us back like 3 to 4, 5 years, something in that range. But we just learned a lot. And I'm like, yeah, but that knowledge, that experience makes me so much more valuable. So I don't mind postponing. I mean, I don't mind making money. But I don't, because I used the 2/3 model where like, I mean, I pay my bills and I put money aside for pension and everything, but I also do this thing on the side. So I probably work around like 50 hours a week, something in that range. So I still do my full-time job as a teacher, no problem. But then I also do this thing on the side, and I just love it. And it makes me a better educator when it comes to innovation and entrepreneurship, because it's my practical level. So the whole goal was not actually to make money out of it, but all of a sudden we're just in a position where we can. And
Awesome.
yes, it's a really fun place. But I just do something as boring. I talked to my accountant yesterday. I'm like, I want to put money for my pension. That's all the money that I make. I want to, because I don't need it at the moment. So it's just a good way to like keep so I don't pay the highest form of income taxes, which is like, I don't mind paying my taxes, but it's just, if we have this thing and I still want to put aside, because I know if you have a lot of money put on the side for pension for your next project, if you talk to a bank, they would look into that and saying, okay, you're really good at putting money on the side. It makes it more secure because they need to take that. So knowing the game, knowing what is it that the banks are looking into when you have to do something, because I want to invest in bricks, because I'm really good at seeing where things going, and then all the things that I've done, a lot of people have made money out of that. I'm like, I think it's time for me to. I think it's okay that I also make money. So I want to begin investing in different sort of like bricks. So it could be whatever. It could be an old garage. It could be something, and then creating something in and around that, and yeah, I don't know, playing around with that could be fun. I think it needs to be fun as well, because I don't know a lot about that, but it's something that's challenging, and I'm okay with that at the moment.
I heard recently a guy talking about how he made like 15 different funding applications and he didn't get anyone through. But I remember you saying that you get a lot of them through. I think it was at 75% of the ones you apply. How come you have so much success rate in funding applications?
I think it's because I'm really good at finding the core passion and why this project needs to be funded. And then you don't think about so much. Then you think to yourself, this needs to be funded, because this actually is something that needs to see the light of day. And I think people can see that when they read an application. If it's just a phony or just something where you send out a ton, and it's like I used to sit in a committee where we saw through applications for funding, where people send it to us and wanted to get money. And it's easy to see if it's something where they just want to make money out of it. They don't have a real intention on doing this, but it's something that they want to do because it's easy money for them, or it's part of the business model, or what it is that they're doing. So actually one of the key thing is not to, when it comes to funding, not to in the budget write a lot of money for yourself. So it needs to go to the project. But then knowing that project, it's like the best marketing tool you can have. So I think that's another key thing, is to actually be like really good at knowing the people who read these applications, what is it that they want to do, because they want to hand out money, but they want to hand out money for the right project. So it needs to. I don't do a ton of funding with projects that I don't believe in. If I don't believe in it, then I'm not going to do it. If I believe in the project and this is something that is original and that needs to get funded, then an application could take me like 30 minutes and I would usually get it. And sometimes it's small, sometimes it's like really big. I think the biggest one I had is like the one actually paying for my job is Interreg. So that's a pretty big sale. I think it's around like 3 million euros that we help fund. But that's for a big collaboration. Mm-hmm. But it pays like 4/5 of my salary, which is kind of cool that I help. Do that. It gives me a sense of freedom to do that as well. So make sure that if you want to do funding, we have developed this 9-stage funding process that we have that really works nice, because it helps you also see other opportunities other than only to seek finance funding. Mm-hmm. But then if you want to do that, really be good at understanding the people who are going to read the application and what it is that they want. And actually what we always do is we have a dialogue with people before we send in an application, so they know the project beforehand, and then because they want to help us write a good application, so they know that it goes in the direction that they want to have. So, for instance, for Spire, the thing that I just talked about at the municipality of Stevns, or at Stevns, we had a talk with them, and they said, if you could, we read your application. If you have an opportunity to go for this target group that's plus 25, that will help us a lot. And I'm like, okay, then let's do that. And then rewriting that and then saying, okay, this is the information, because they actually have built into the process that you can get some feedback before you send in the application. So send us what it is that you want to do, then we're going to give you feedback, which is like a really good way for people who like do it, because then you have a dialogue, and then you can say yes or no to that. If we just said no, we want to keep in that, perhaps we would get turned down. But we were like, okay, if that is what you want to do, we don't mind doing that, because it's part of a bigger picture. So knowing that is like really important.
Right. So having a dialogue with some of the representatives of the...
Yeah. So if it's Realdania, if it's Nordea Fonden, if it's whoever, they actually like that. They both like that you're ambitious. So instead of applying for like one event, but this needs to be 10 events in order for that thing to work. I'm like, okay, then let's become ambitious. So for instance, this project in Stevns is like, I think it's 1.5 year project, and I think it's the only project that is like not only one event and then it's done. It's like 1.5 years of activities going on, and we knew that was something a bit more special. So, and then, and usually there's always a reference. You can always contact somebody, especially for the bigger applications. Do that. That's why they have put their name on it.
Right.
To saying, okay, we think about this, because it's also a really nice way to before and know, okay, we have this idea, and then they say this is completely off what it is that we want to do. We like your idea, but we are not going to support that. Then don't spend a lot of time doing that whole application, and then being really good at working with other partners. Realizing it's the biggest thing. Like if you want to do an application, seek out other people, saying, okay, do you want to be part of this application? We're going to do this. We're going to seek money, and you also get some money out of this to do your activities. But then we can become actually more ambitious. So that's another key thing. It's like being really good at saying, okay, who else might benefit from this? And I know that people who read applications, if they know that 5 people have talked together and made one application that is like ambitious, instead of giving like 5 smaller grants, they would much rather have like one that's easy to do, that's ambitious, where they just pull everything together. So they love to see that you also know how to interact with other people, because, for instance, if you seek something for like an area like this, I don't know, there's probably a lokaludvalg at this area. Instead of like having something where it only benefits a few, if we pile things together, then it becomes, the effect is usually better, and it affects more people, and thus the money would be better spent of that. So knowing how to do this work beforehand is a key thing when it comes to funding as well. And then make sure that the people who read the applications know that you've done this. Because it's an incentive to say, okay, these are really good at working with projects, with project management. They're really good at taking care of the money that we give them, and they are spreading out not only to themselves but also to their business partners and also the network that they're working with.
What if you have never done it before?
Begin small.
Okay.
Try getting a small application for like a 10,000 kroner for a local event. That's like there's a lot of like these smaller, easier things to get into. Begin small, and then the first experience is like, yeah, we got the money. It's like that's a big thing, and I think that those are the small milestones in your life that actually can become pretty big. Like I think the first money that we ever got was like, yeah, we got the money, we can do this, and it was like probably like 15,000. It was like a relatively small amount. But it just gave us motivation to also realize this is something that other people want to support.
Yeah, there is value.
Yeah,
inside. Yeah.
And it also makes your project more clear, because it requires you to communicate what it is that you want to do. And so I usually also say funding is like really good, because it also makes you more aware of what it is actually that you want to do. And in the beginning, there's a lot of like, okay, where's it gonna go? Yeah, but try doing some funding at the local place where it's like relatively small amount. I mean, if small grants under 25,000 are like pretty easy to get. I don't do them as often as we did in the beginning because, I mean, I think, but sometimes we still do. I mean, I'm like, okay, this, if it takes like an hour, I get like 20,000 and I get like 10,000 for artists. That's a pretty good investment in my time because knowing what to do, but then again, not seeking any money for project finance. Stems is actually pretty, I think like 2/3 of the money is for project management because that's this project is 1.5 years. So we're okay with that, but it's not something that I just read the application yesterday and I'm like, okay, we actually seeked a lot of money for ourselves. I forgot about that. But there's also a lot of project management, so it makes sense in that project. So begin small, and then learn from that, and then always, if you get a no, contact people saying, "Why did we get a no?" And then you get a lot of insights from that. Then it's not time worse. Then it's time well spent.
I have a question about. Let's imagine that I would love to have, or not imagine. This is something that actually I would like to have your advice. Let's say this podcast, right? We had an offer to get a new studio, but we didn't have the finances to be able to actually pay for it or to make it happen. So, like, if this podcast would be something that you would want to write a project about and then seek funding, how would you actually go about it?
I think in your case, I would go crowdfunding wise.
Okay.
Crowdfunding, because I mean, then you also crowdfunding is one of the most interesting areas that I haven't done practical as such,
because we don't have much of following yet. So I feel like
no, but that's, I mean, because the wonderful thing about crowdfunding is it makes you activate your network, and if you don't get the funding, you still have activated the network, and making sure that people. So actually, it could be an excuse to get out and talk to other people. And it's like a really fun creative exercise to do a good crowdfunding. I just talked to my best friend, who was the one who actually inspired me to be a DJ in the beginning. And he's like a really good musician. He's like really good at producing music. And we said, okay, because he moved to Jutland, I was like, we need to do something together because I'm at an age where if we don't do a project together, I mean, it's more difficult to see. But I know if it's something where if it becomes a project, then it's just time spent with my friends.
Yes.
And then I said, if we could turn his project into a crowdfunding where we could both learn something about it, that would be interesting, because this sort of thing about crowdfunding is just it flips everything around. All of a sudden, your people who back you become like your customers of some sort, but they also back you, but they also invest, and they also want to help you with advices. So the thing about crowdfunding is you don't only get money from crowdfunding, you gain a lot of exposure, and you gain a lot of knowledge, and you can actually get a lot of feedback on your idea. And then you can actually also scale it to say, okay, if we only get like, say for instance, if you want to have the money to do a studio, I don't know how much that is, let's say $250,000, I don't know. And then say, okay, this is the goal that we have. If we get like $500,000, then we do this. If we get like that, then we get this. And the people who are like financing us the biggest, they perhaps like get a podcast about what it is that they want to do, something. And you can also turn it into, then you can also do whatever. They can become Prime members. They can do a lot of different things. So this whole thing about you can build in rewards to people, and then it could be different things. So, but then it's also a wonderful opportunity to talk to other people who've done some really cool crowdfunding campaigns, because I think the best crowdfunding campaigns are like really creative in their setup, how they did it, and how they had a plan to like constant exposure and making sure that it was backed. So that would be one advice of mine, to like saying, okay, crowdfunding is more than just getting the funding. It's about activating your whole network.
So you would try to, so like going on Kickstarter or something like that, that's not really it, or is it?
Yeah.
Because then you would try to hook your network into it.
You can find different platforms. Some of them are, Kickstarter is just one, but I think, again, it's like having like a really good idea on why is this important and how could it actually benefit other people. So it could be a lot of things, a lot of cool things. It could be but at the top of my head I can't think of anything, but you can do a lot of things around that. And so activating but this whole thing about activating and getting feedback from your network, especially in the beginning, I'm like, go all in, because sometimes if you hit people with the right thing, then it's like, if you know what is the value created from this podcast and what it is so much more. For instance, it could be we create free learning material for schools to use about entrepreneurship. So by supporting you, then you actually support a lot. It could be like one way. It could be other things. You could have biodiversity built into the whole thing. So if you support us, then we also take like 1/3 of the money and invest in biodiversity projects or whatever. I'm not saying you should go in that direction, but there's a lot of different ways where you can actually incentivize people to say, we want to support this, not that. But it needs to be something that's true and original. It needs to be something that speaks into like the core of what it is that you're doing. And because people are going to test you on it, and they can see whether or not it's bogus or something that's like comes from the heart. And that's why I love, for instance, for me, working with biodiversity, because I know that this is something I feel like the world needs, to have people become more humble and not putting themselves in the center, and then creating more better conditions for, in general, the planet to thrive and exist. But it's just something that a lot of people want to do. They just don't know how to do it, or where to go to. And I know if I can create a platform where they can actually be part of that whole thing, then for me, the sky's the limit. And that could actually be kind of fun. And also, it's a project that's not. I don't need a bigger house. I don't need a faster car. There's not a lot of things that I need in my life. Actually, I got everything I need. I'm okay. I think it's about securing for other people. And so that's another thing. People are going to test you on your passion about what it is. And if you really want to do it, then you don't mind standing in front of like the government of Denmark saying, okay, we need to go in this direction. This is something, because then it's just something you got to do, whether or not you're introvert or extrovert or whatever. If it's something where it's something you completely, and I think doing a good crowdfunding needs to find that it needs to be something more than only. It needs to be, what is the value created from this this project, this firm, this organization, and how can we use it? How can we use the skill also to perhaps help other people? Because then all of a sudden you become much more. And somebody, I'm here to make money. I'm like, okay, go do that. Somebody else are like, yeah, this actually helps other people in some wonderful ways, which is kind of like, it's really nice to hear those stories. And those are usually the people that I want to support.
But isn't that like very much just knocking on the door of a gatekeeper in a sense?
Could you elaborate?
Like, because you want to do something, right? You want to go through a certain type of door, but then there's someone there, and you're kind of asking the person to open the door for you, in the terms of you knocking on the government's door, or you're knocking on something.
But actually, I think about, I rather think about it like there's something that's not there yet, and instead of saying I want to go through your door, I'm like inviting you to come along on this trip. Let's go together and see how this biodiversity, how can we solve this? How can we work with this potential within biodiversity?
Right.
How can we collaborate on it? I usually don't sell ideas. I usually have I have an idea on where things are going. And then I am just really good at communicating with other people and listen to what it is that they're saying. And what it is that they're saying, it would sort of like mold into that direction, saying, hey, okay, you also fancy this, but what it is, you want to do something in this. Okay, let's do that then, because then we co-develop. So I never have something where I have all the answers. I never have the solutions. I have an idea on where things are going, but I don't know. So I need other people to come along with the journey. But I don't mind facilitating the journey as such and bringing them along. But let's do it together. I think it's kind of like pretty nice way to do it, because then you don't. as soon as you have the whole concept figured out, then it's a matter of selling the concept.
Right.
And I hate that. I hate selling. But I don't mind co-developing, and then it becomes something completely different.
Right. Because you're not trying to convince them to do something with you. You are asking them about, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah, and should we do together? And if you want to do together, what would it take for you to come along on this journey? What is your stake? What is it that? And you should know what it is that they want to do. And that's why it's really important to read like newspapers and getting an understanding of what is local businesses, what are they working towards. So for instance, in Nestle, where I also work at, a lot of companies, they have a hard time getting the right people to come and work for them because they want to work in Copenhagen, not in Nestle. Knowing that, it's like, okay, should we do a project where you actually expose yourself so much more to students and making sure that you can actually do that? And then like, yeah, because I already know that that's part of their agenda. I'm like, okay, this project that we do together, it helps you get exposure to students and actually do something that's a bit different way of doing it. Knowing that, saying, okay, I know those are your struggles, and the concept of the project that we're making are actually, it not only solves the problem that I work with, but it actually also solves your problem. And this whole thing about working with potential, the potential is this might be something where all of us benefit if we do it together. And then they're usually on board. So this whole thing about listening, and then we have a principle in Vibe and Tone that's called den halve dagsorden. So you only know half of the agenda of going to a meeting. So you allow people to interact with the project. So
right.
Yeah.
So you receive feedback on the thing you were repeating together instead of...
And then I would collect all that feedback, and then I would mold the project around that, because knowing, okay, if I want them to be along, I need to do this, and then and that's actually where AI is like really good. Knowing if they have this thing and they have this thing, you can actually, because for instance, if you want to work with a municipality or you want to work with a company, they have like a strategy, the next 4 year strategy. Upload that into an AI. Take the strategy of a business company, of a municipality, of an education or whatever, or what it is that you do, and then having AI figure out what could be a good middle ground with all this. That's like the tool is perfect to do that. It's like really good at making compromises all around, and then setting up a system. So that's where I use AI, for instance, when it comes to like collecting all the knowledge, saying, okay, these are all the different directions that it might go. Could you combine this into one vision, one strategy for what it is that we want to do, with some sub goals, some milestones, and then all of a sudden you have like a project right there.
So you're basically selling, quote unquote, them what they already want.
Yeah, or not selling, but actually listening to, taking into account what it is that they actually already do, and that they perhaps already set out to do, so they have money to do it, but they just need an outlet on where to go, and they need somebody to do it with, because it's not always that they figure out how are we going to do this. So that's why it's fun working with development ideas when it comes to companies, municipalities. Okay, we know we have to do something with it, we just don't know how. Then all of a sudden turning up, saying, okay, we could do this, and this actually solves some of the things. Right. Knowing how to speak that game. I mean, it also takes like a sort of a political sense. You need to know how to you need to know how to interact with different people at different times. So whether or not it's a politician, it's a company owner, it's students, it's local citizens, it's whoever, knowing how to talk it, and that actually requires a lot of empathy to know what is it that they're doing. And I think that's one of my key skills, is really good at knowing different people. I think that I use that all the time.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm very curious at what other people, what it is that they are doing. So I always listen. And people always think of me as somebody who talks a lot. I do. But I think I'm actually one of the persons who know most about what it is, like all my former people that I was in class with are doing, and also my colleagues. So this whole thing about interacting with people is so much more than me talking. I listen quite a lot and knowing what it is that people are doing.
Was it something that like it's natural for you, like since childhood, we will say, or is it something that you learn in specific time?
Yeah, I remember definitely from my mom and dad. They love just being around people, and was always curious to how people were doing. And actually, it's a wonderful thing to ask other people, "How are you doing?" And then people are like, "Job is fine." I say, "Yeah, but how are you doing?" I mean, getting this understanding of how are you doing, instead of treating you as a resource or something. It's just like you as a person, one to one, a person who also lives in this world that we're living in, who also have your daily struggles, who also have like all the things that you want to do, all your hope, all your aspirations, all what it is that you want to do. My mom and dad were like pretty good at doing that as well. So it doesn't come far away, but it's something that was built into my mom was very caring about other people. She perhaps too much. I think that's why she was so caring that it would have benefited her to also take care of herself. But that was just like her thing, and it's I mean, having a mom that's like too caring is like that. There are worse things in this world than having that. So I actually, that's when it comes to sustainability, biodiversity. I can see. I said my goal right now is to make sure that people care about the world, because if you care about something, if you're emotionally attached to something, then I don't need to teach you about sustainability and the importance. Then you would just do it. So if you love your brother, then you are always interested in making sure that he's okay. You take care of him, knowing that, because you're emotionally attached. And I think what we need in this world is a bit more emotional attachment to our fellow people that we're around, our local community, our world, our nature, it could be our spiritual side, to get emotionally attached to something and caring about something that's more than just ourselves. I think that's actually one of the biggest struggles that I have as a teacher is like, I see a lot of people like really caring mostly about themselves. And I think people who care more about other people actually are like, they usually live a pretty good life, but they need to at one point also make sure that that somebody takes care of them. And if you're in a good relationship with people, it doesn't need to be a romantic relationship. It could just be a relationship with your fellow colleagues, with your boss at work, knowing, okay, what gives you energy, and having a clear understanding of that. So that it makes that easier.
But aren't you also good at seeing what gives them energy?
Yeah. That's part of the understanding. And then for instance, I know that my girlfriend, she loves when our house is clean. So I clean the house. She works in Copenhagen. When she gets home and like everything is just like clean and everything is just, she just comes home and it's, and knowing that she just functions. If it's a mess at home, I mean, then I can better live with it. But she needs to be like, it needs to be like pretty clean. And I love it. And then it's just my gift to her. I become like, I just listen to music and then I clean the house for 2 hours. And then it's just, so knowing all those things, taking those things into account. How are other people around me? What is important for them to thrive?
It's very interesting to hear from you, that you are like a professor as well. It's something that we don't hear much in schools, how to like, hey, the focus is not like you all the time, because many of the time, for example, when you do a test, it's like individual tests or you need to do it alone or this and that. But actually, you, in your point, it's like bringing people together. That's also something that you are very good at, saying, hey, I will take this, put together. Hey, I don't need to be in the middle, but middleman, and you guys do something amazing,
It's spoken like true what it is Vibe and Tone is all about, and also as a teacher. Yes, completely right. Thank you for listening. That whole that's part of the whole thing about having this understanding of each other, and hopefully using it the right way. I mean, you can also use it wrongly and then manipulate other people, but it needs to be from a place that's like positive. I would say. That's just because then I don't mind failing. I don't mind failing if it's something that I know I just did out of a good heart, and then things might go bad. But I'm like, but at least I did something, and then it turned out the wrong way. I'm like, please forgive me. But that whole thing about actually about forgiving other people, and forgiving is also like a really important thing when it comes to like interacting with people. Like, if you know how to truly forgive other people, then I think you reached a like really good scale in your life. Something that's like really. I think that whole element about forgiving other people, I think that's why it's such a high thing on I think probably at many religions, but I think understanding why. Also, if you want to forgive, then it's a good way of forgiving is also understanding why did people treat you poorly. Usually it's not, it's a misunderstanding at one point. So that's why this whole thing about, it actually comes back to some elements about teaching, like you got to have the right data. Data is also an understanding. Why did you do that? Oh, I didn't know. Okay, because I was like really hurt. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Then it becomes easy. Then all of a sudden it breaks everything down. All these projections that we have, like, does she hate me or whatever? And then all of a sudden we realize, no, it was just a bad day or something turned out. So having those understanding, and then I usually also say, it's when things are going like really well and nice that we build these relations that we have with each other. It's where we make sure that everything is like strong for when things turn sour, and then that's where you see like how life is really. And I remember when my mom passed away, which like devastated me totally. I was like, my mom was very positive, and she wouldn't have me despair as such. So she would just. When she died, because she got a stroke, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. She just got a stroke and then died like a day later. And I was like, okay, Mom, if everything you taught me was about not giving up, having hope, how can I honor that in that moment? So in the moment of biggest despair, how might I turn this into something that's useful? And that's an intellectual challenge, actually.
Right.
So I was like, okay, how can I turn this into something that doesn't make any sense? Give it a sense of some sort. And I was like, perhaps this makes my relationship with my brother stronger, with my girlfriend, with a lot of people. And I was like, okay, I think there is a potential for me to grow from this experience, no matter how hard it is. And it doesn't make the grief disappear, but it gives it a sense of purpose.
Right.
And so, a lot of people say that's very optimistic, but it's also an intellectual challenge to say, okay, we have this. This has been done to me, or this happened to me because, and then how to turn that into something that's useful, and that's the learning aspect. What can I learn from this? And how can I, in so many ways, honor my mother by not going into that, saying, okay, everything you taught me, now it needs to be proven she did a good job. So by me failing and me going into despair and becoming, I don't know, angry, or going into depression, that would actually not benefit the whole thing about what my mom was. So I was like pretty fast at saying, okay, I need to turn this into something very positive, because that was some of the core values from my mom. And then I did that. Which took like a lot of it wasn't easy, but at least it gave it a frame that I could work with. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. So, and then kept on. And then I remember from when she got for her funeral, like all my friends turned up. I was like, and it was at Easter, so I know everybody had plans, but like because my household was like a place where everybody came, so everybody knew my mom, like the kind of person that she was. And standing there like 2 weeks after she passed away at her funeral, and it was such a crazy time. But then just seeing like, okay, all my friends are here. Like 1/3 of all the guests were my friends.
Wow.
I was like, okay, she did something right. That like everybody like postponed all their Easter plans and then coming to this funeral. I was like, it's gonna work out all right. Yeah, that was like a clear message. Okay. You haven't lost everything. You've lost a key element to your life, but you haven't lost everything. And you can in those moments become like real despair, and that's my own idea about it. And then everything that I thought might happen, for instance, I might get a better relationship with my brother, with my girlfriend, with my friends, that came into fruition. That came to happen. But I think it's also about it's about self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want to have that, it could actually go in that direction. You are part of that. If you want to be an active element to it, and acknowledging that, and then just doing that. So I mean, and it's still, when it comes to like the big picture, I think hopefully parents die before their children. If I die, I mean that's I would feel wrongly about that, but I have thought about it. I have done that mental exercise. Okay, what would happen if she died? Because there are no certainties you have. So having that, I mean, it's not to be pessimistic, but it's about knowing it might happen, and you can actually prepare yourself emotionally for when that happens. And that doesn't mean that you have to turn into a robot. It just means to have like a really, really strong emotional intelligence with your own feelings. And I think that comes from my upbringing, most definitely. And I use that, I think, every day. Right now I use it. Yeah.
But isn't there like an element about it, like letting go of what you wish was the reality?
Not letting go, actually diving more into reality.
Right, okay, yeah.
So it's actually the direct opposite, because going away from reality would be sort of like an escape. And I think I did the opposite. I came more into it. But it's still, I mean, there's that half year, I mean, my recollection of those 6 months, I can't remember anything from it.
Okay.
So I know there's some emotional baggage still there.
Right.
But it's still something which I mean, if somebody that you love so dearly dies, I mean, if you don't get any sort of like,
of course.
then I mean, it has to be there. I'm totally fine with that. I never wish to do that. I never wish that upon anybody else, like that, having to have that. But I was like, so it's actually being more the thing that I thought in that exchange was like, okay, this is so unfair. Which I think a lot of people do. I'm like, but who's deciding that? I mean, and then I had to turn away from that narrative, saying there's nobody saying that. There's no so that question is invalid. Do something else. There's not somebody out to get you. This is life happening. Deal with it. And then so going from this narrative that this is unfair and why is this going to happen to me? I'm like, yeah, try finding somebody who has lived a life who hasn't met somebody dying. I mean, it's like impossible. It's one of the certainties in life. Right. So deal with it. And I think that's why being really good friends with death, I think, can actually be quite good, because then you appreciate the time that we have, and not spending time doing a lot of things that are like a waste of time, because we don't have a lot of time to waste. Right. So why waste it? Let's do something positive. Let's do something that's like according to your belief, and hopefully if it doesn't hurt anybody else, then I think it's worth doing. And if you can invest in other people and perhaps telling the story and doing other things, then I think it's worth doing. I don't mind. I think that's part of the whole. It's part of the legacy actually from my mom. She's bringing this. I mean, the thing that I'm talking about, she never formulated it this way, but those are still like her thoughts, her ideas. It's not. Then I don't. I mean, some of them are like a thought to by myself and get inspired by other things, but those are still the beliefs from my childhood.
How do you tackle that in terms of like, because this is such a deep question. This is unfair, but it's not rational. How do you tackle that? But it's also very real at the same time.
You rationalize it.
Okay.
I've never been more rational than at that point. Saying, okay, let's go back and saying this is the wrong question. This is an irrational question to ask yourself. So let's ask a rational question.
What was that?
How can I use this for something positive?
Okay.
So going from this is unfair to how can I use this for something positive? Because it has happened, and it's not something that has happened to you because you've been a bad boy or anything. This has happened. How are you going to use it? That was the only thing. And it's kind of simple, but so it's asking yourself the right question instead of the wrong question. The premise needs to be something that is according to you. So that was I would say that was
It's so interesting to hear, and thank you for sharing that, because it gave so much sense why you are such a hopeful person. You always want to find the opportunity instead of the problem, for example. And also, like, every time people interact with you, they always have feeling that, like, wow, this guy, he looks
Very
like
warm.
he just
Very warm. That was my impression.
yeah, he just loves every moment, basically, you know. And it's to hear that maybe it didn't start there, but I have impression they fundamentalized in there, where he was like, okay, how can this become something good? And I think that's just a beautiful legacy that your mom gave it to you.
and dad and other people around. I mean, it takes a village to grow, to educate a kid.
Sure.
So but I mean, one of the core things was, but thank you, yeah, most definitely. And the whole thing is actually, I've become very optimistic, not because nothing bad has ever happened to me. I have become very optimistic because a lot of things have actually have the potential to be, like, in other people's perspective, like very bad and might have broken somebody else.
But you chose to look at it from a positive side.
Actually, as an intellectual challenge, very much so. To have because I think we have an amazing capacity to think about things and then dissecting it. I think there's a reason why I'm an engineer, actually, is I'm really good at taking things apart, looking at them, and being, like, very rational.
Yeah.
So I'm very emotional, but I think some of this stems from me being, like, very good at being very rational, actually, and having an understanding about what is this human body that we're living in. How does it work? How does it function? Stimulating of senses. Like, that's why I love music. That's why I love art, because it moves us in so many ways that I don't need to dissect. I don't need to dissect that something moves you. I don't need to. If you think something is beautiful, I don't need to dissect that, saying, why do you think that's beautiful? I could ask that question, but I don't want to convince you that it's not. So also knowing that it's not everything that could be dissected, it's not everything that needs to be rational, but knowing when is the right time to take something that's irrational and then rationalize it, and then putting another framework around it. I think that we have this sort of, like, amazing creativity and capacity in around that I just love. I love finding another perspective when everybody comes down and, like, lose hope. I'm like, yeah, how can we use this for something positive? I'm doing it right now with Donald Trump. Fine. I mean, I'm just like, again, I'm like, well, why are we moving backwards in so many ways? I'm like, okay. So instead of having despair, I'm like, okay, now I think it's time for me to, like, step up. That's what I'm thinking. I need to step up. I need to do something more, because clearly the whole political system is broken in some ways. I don't see a lot of politicians moving me.
Right.
I'm like, so I'm like, okay, so I need to be the voice of that.
Oh, cool.
I need to step up. I need to step up.
In which way?
I need to tell the story more. I need to do things more. That's why I love teaching as well. But I need to, those thoughts, those ideas need to get bigger exposure. So I mean, I spend a lot of time with my family, but I also know, like, yeah, but you have an opportunity to actually do even more. And when time comes, I mean, when my kid is a bit older, you need to step up your game. You need to do it because the world needs it.
So you're thinking to get a little bit more involved with the government and politics, in a sense?
No, I don't know if that is the right direction for me. I think teaching would always be a core fundamental thing of mine. I think that's why I love teaching, because you impact the world in a different way. You can do it it's like a daily life. I don't mind speaking in a political game, but I don't think that stage is for me. So I think I'm really good at where I am right now. I think I can do a lot of, like, positive, have a lot of positive effect where I am. And also technology helps a lot. You can actually do a lot of things where, like, teaching and scale the whole thing upwards. So that's yeah.
Also, I think it's a huge job that sometimes is take for granted, teaching, because you can actually shape the new generation out of the way. If you have a good teacher, let's say if you have a good math teacher, you'll be passionate about math because your teacher, it's a good. He was able to trust me to send to you a good way to see math, you know?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
But that's why I say it takes a village. I mean, I think I had a really good teacher growing up from 3rd grade until 10th grade called John Mølø Larsen, who I'm ever grateful for. He was just like, if you couldn't ask of anything more from a teacher than that. And I know that's part of why I love teaching. He was just an inspiration, sort of like a father figure to me. And those, luckily, I've been around a couple of those persons. But so yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, and actually, it's a good humbling experience. Like I could go around saying, yeah, I'm the best, but I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have done.
Right.
There's a reason why you're doing good. And hopefully I can be that for other people as well. And my heart goes out to everybody in elementary school, especially in Denmark. It's not the same anymore. They have a hard time. And I think it's not the stage for me, but I mean, I love working with the elementary. I love working with especially like 5th, 6th graders. But I also love working with people who are almost there, and because I love entrepreneurship as well. I love seeing people create something. But yeah, having this understanding, my heart would always go out to an education. Yeah, I love it.
It's very interesting because you also mentioned that system with time, you know, and what you do like for work and to generate income, and what you do as a passionate about, you know, and then be able to now, I believe, or maybe since when you decide to become a teacher, is that this will be the income, but it's also what I'm passionate about, or just, you know.
Yeah, it's actually you dig into a core element of the 2/3 model. It's like the whole goal of the 2/3 model is like to transform the 1/3 into the 2/3. So, for instance, I've done a lot of like jobs that are like I don't want to do for the rest of my life. But teaching, working with entrepreneurship is like that used to be something that I was very passionate about. Now it's something that I do for my daily life. I still have like 1/3 going on the side, but it used to be like my 1/3 where I was passionate. This is what I'm doing right now. So there's a reason why I'm smiling like all the time. It's like this used to be the dream, and now I'm just knowing, okay, there's something new I got to do. And I think stepping up is also doing something about, in my case, biodiversity. You know, because it's a bigger challenge, and something that needs. I think it needs my skill set. Not only my skill set, but I think I'm a component in that fairy tale as well. And it has a lot of potential to do something different. And I want to see something different. I want to constantly. I love developing. I'm also a big anarchist. I love tearing down structures and then rebuilding. So yeah, there's definitely a big element of me of just want to tear everything down and then building it better.
Coming back to what you talked about, that people are in hurry, right?
Yeah.
There is this dream, this passion that you have for biodiversity and all that. How do you? Because from my own perspective, like I'm definitely the guy that is always in a hurry. I feel like I am 27 and I'm like I thought that my life would be so much further than it is, and but yet if I talk to people and they actually tell me what I have and they help me to realize what I have, like. Okay, I am pretty far, but then still, I want to see things happening, right? How do you deal with how do you motivate yourself to stay calm and not try to, you know, always be like,
yeah. If you don't take time, you don't have time. Take time. I mean, take time to be present, like right now. I mean, I have other things to do, but I'm like. I mean, not everything has to be so planned out. So I just take my time doing things, and then they usually make sense in hindsight. But there's also me in my 20s is a different type of person than me in my 40s. I say in my 20s...
What's different?
I said I had to say yes to everything in my 20s because I didn't want to miss out. I also didn't have a kid. I didn't have any. I mean, life was just like really amazing in my 20s, and it was in my 30s and my teens as well. But 20s was like not knowing which direction I want to go in my life and saying yes to everything. It was kind of hard. And I definitely burned my candles in both ends in my 20s. But I also had the energy to do it. In my 30s, I began saying no to things. man, I don't want to do this. I don't. It's too much. Let's just relax. Let's saying no to things, and then things begin to turn out really good. And then in my 40s, it's like everything is just like all the stuff I've been working on for 20 years are beginning to like be together in this final wonderful thing. So you being 27 is like, yeah, fine. I was the same thing. It's going to pan out just right. I mean,
I believe so, but I would want that pan to be already done, right?
yeah. But it's knowing that I mean, I'm very proud of everything that I did. I know a lot of my friends, they did something more traditional, and they have like major houses right now, and everything is turning out really nice. But it's like, yeah, but you can only be one place at a time, and I'm like, I don't need a bigger house. I mean, I'm very, very glad to all the things that I've been doing in my life, and sometimes I'm like, man, that's a lot of experience within a lot of different fields. But then, as I said, this thing about, and then all of a sudden it comes at the end. It gives you an empathy on a lot of different topics, on a lot of different matters. And that's why it's the best thing about being an entrepreneur is you use all your knowledge. You can use all your knowledge. So that's why I'm like, now all of a sudden, I used to play role-playing games back in elementary school. And those sort of Warhammer 40K. And now I teach game-based learning, where I've used all that experience from role-playing games. Now I just use it. I'm like, I didn't think about it back then, but all of a sudden, like all the hours spent doing that, not going to parties, not hooking up with women, those were like, I was a big nerd growing up. I loved math, and I was kind of a chubby kid, and I loved playing football. I wasn't the best, but I was just a happy kid. But this sort of thing, like all the things that I did back then, all of a sudden, because I work with what it is that I do, both teaching-wise and vibe and tone and all those things, all of a sudden they just like, they are the building blocks to all the wonderful creative ideas that we have. Like, we can go in this direction, we can do this because of those things happening. And yes, I know that it's being 27, I was the same, like, because I was around 30 when I got my first degree, and I'm an engineer, and usually like engineers have like a pretty good salary and high job security. I just wanted something different out of my life. I didn't want to work as an engineer. I just loved it. I loved studying. It was really fun. And then, I mean, all the debt that I had from back then, from my student loans and all that debt, I still need to pay 100,000 from my student loan debt. It could be paid off like pretty fast, but now everything is like, and then I don't know what, I mean, all my life I always had a lot of like debt, and that's not a good thing, but but now all of a sudden paying all the things that I have to do in order to pay off my debt and our real estate and all those things that we have, all of a sudden they're paid off, and then I have this high element of freedom. But the things that I learned from that journey, my way of, I wouldn't say hustling, but just like really, it's a grind. But from grinding out and having that sort of like discipline of having like to work really hard, I don't need to do that much anymore because my life is good, but I know it's there. If I need to work hard at something, I can do it. But so not having to be at your A game constantly, but actually like being really good at something, but knowing it doesn't take everything out of you. But I love that I need to produce and become like the A game. And I did that much more in my 20s. It always had to be there because I didn't know which direction I want to go. Now I do. So I know like 10 times a year I need to step up and have my A game. It could be at certain conferences, workshops, where I really need to deliver. And I love those. And then doing that and then seeing the impact, and people are like, yeah, that's amazing. That was amazing 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I know. I also worked hard to do that. So having that sort of like but it's shaping you. It's like exercise. It shapes you. So I'm like, okay. As a teacher, I'm like, yeah, perfect. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that sort of like frustration, because I was like, I thought I figured this out. And ask me again in 10 years or 5 years, I think I figured it out. I haven't yet. But that's part of the whole exercise, I would say. Because I would never settle down. the anarchist, the development in me would never settle down, would always go new directions. And I think my girlfriend hates me sometimes that I say, couldn't you just be happy? I'm like, I'm really happy, but I'm happy when I'm developing, when I'm interacting with other people, when I'm sitting here. I mean, this is a very joyful experience, actually. I mean, just talking to you guys, it's like really, yeah.
Yeah, we love it too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else to say? Because we have done like 1.5 hour of a podcast. It's good.
That's the material. Yeah. But thank you. They were really nice experience.
Thank you, Rasmus.
I like the setup. I like this thing of talking.
Thank you, Rasmus, for joining us here.
Yeah.
In the Start Now podcast.
Yeah.
Do you have any final advice for us because we've been running the company now for 1 year, the video production company, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe because this is a Start Now podcast, maybe that's a better ending. We try to motivate people that are watching that haven't made that step yet to start something.
Yeah.
We want to motivate them like, hey, come on, just do it but there's potential that you will make this world a better place.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people that are still hesitant?
I would reframe the question.
Okay.
And saying, try to make a list of all the things that you have accomplished.
Okay.
I mean, it could be them knowing how to make a good sourdough bread. Doing something where they don't think of it in that term. I usually know as a teacher, if I can reframe it, I know that people are already entrepreneurs. They are already investors. They are already all those business words that we tend to throw around. So reframing the whole thing, saying, give me a list of the 10 things that you're proudest that you have created in your life. You can ask this to a kid in elementary school. And then they would be hesitant in the beginning to say, but I haven't done anything. Then you need to ask them some further questions where you say, I tend to disagree. And then knowing that, and then making sure that people understand that they are already entrepreneurs by heart, just by existing in this world. They are creating, they are doing something, and then making sure that they realize that they are already there. We just need to. They already have the core skill set to do it. Just do it more. Do it again, and it's okay experimenting with it. So that's usually it's already built into them. It's not something that they need to get taught. It's already there. It's just under the surface. And then as an intellectual exercise, take a look at all the things that you have created. What was the common denominator in those things? What was it that they did, and how? What was their part in that? And it could be something that they did by themselves, or something that they did in a collaboration with somebody else. It could be organizing the local, I don't know, Christmas party at your school. It could be something where I say that's a skill set. That's a skill set of organizing an event. It could be like being really good at folding flowers out of paper. Origami or something. Yeah, but I can't make any money out of that. I'm like, yeah, but let's take that out of the equation. Say you created something that's kind of beautiful. And then I used to say as a teacher, if you create value, I can always find a business model that fits into what it is that you're doing. So I would actually question that whole way of thinking about yourself and then reframe it and then do an intellectual exercise about what have you already done. And tell me about that, because people always tell about what it is that they have been studying or what they're working with. And I'm much more interested in what it is that they're passionate about. That is not always, those are not always connected. And sometimes people do a lot of like different cool things. They teach at the local football club, they do whatever. I'm like, yeah, but then that's you being a teacher, that's you being a consultant. You do something for other people, you create value in different ways. That is like good thing you can build into your whole company. I'm already giving you a head start of 7 years of something that you didn't know. It could be you being really good at, I don't know. But for instance, my best friend, I mean, I just saw his studio, and he's not he's never been that technical, but the way that he has just have this studio with a ton of like technical equipment, it's like walking into Siemens or something. It's just full of gadgets all around, and I'm like, God
This
damn
is
it,
cool.
you're a sound engineer without you realizing it.
Yeah.
So that is already there. You just need somebody around you to help you figure this stuff out, and hopefully there's a good teacher around you that can help you figure that out, or a good friend, or a good neighbor, or a good parent, or a good brother, or a good whatever. And that's a really for me a very hopeful way of going about my business. We are already there. I don't need to teach you anything. I just need to reframe it and then enhance and strengthen that, and then recognize, and then just acknowledging and then supporting that.
Thank you, Rasmus, for your words.
Thank you.
I really find it insightful.
Thank you.
I totally agree with what you just said.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.